12 or 15 years ago, and I believe the last time we had a meeting like this in Eagle Lake was in 2001, which was before my time. Would have been my predecessor. We had the idea for this town hall meeting to discuss mountain lions at Spalding originally last year. One of our game wardens, Dalton Smith, contacted me and said that on Facebook people were reporting a lot of sightings of mountain lions last winter and into the spring, and he wasn't really sure legally what we could really do in this situation and how we should kind of respond to it. And my suggestion was that we should maybe have a town hall meeting to contact as many people from the public at once as possible. Right now, I generally am talking to people on the phone, one person at a time. It's a little bit more efficient to get everyone to hear our message at once. Also, we wanted to give the public as much opportunity as possible to ask their questions, to share their concerns with us, complaints, that kind of thing. We also want just to kind of briefly, I have about 7 pages here, so briefly in quotes here, but to kind of explain how we manage mountain lions, what we're legally allowed to do with mountain lions. The public often has kind of exaggerated idea of what we can really do with mountain lion sightings. Our options are pretty limited by law, so I just wanted to kind of explain the law, explain our policies, which are generally informed by the law, and give a little brief background on how the law kind of came to be. So I was just going to kind of start with the purpose, with how mountain lions are managed by the department. Feel free if you have, I don't know if we want to save questions for the end, or if you guys want to ask your questions during the meeting. I am probably going to get to most of the most common questions that we get from the public at some point, sooner rather than later. But if I say something that you think is just wildly wrong, or you have questions about it, I guess, maybe raise your hand, and if I look up for my notes, I'll try and answer calls on you. But I was just going to kind of start with what the department does with mountain lions, what we're required to do with mountain lions. Our official statement is that we strive to conserve mountain lion populations for their ecological and intrinsic values. To meet this goal, CDFW works to maintain healthy wild populations, minimize conflict between mountain lions and humans. Tongue-in-cheek there's often a disagreement between how the public views problem lions and how the department views problem lions. We are required to identify and protect important habitats, which mountain lions are roughly found in about half of California. They're pretty widespread species in this state. Improve public awareness of mountain lions. Basically, meetings like this is how we kind of strive to do that. And then identify and research emerging issues that threaten mountain lion populations or the habitats upon which they depend. The legal status of mountain lions has changed probably more than maybe any other animal in California. From 1907 till 1963, they were a bounty predator, which means you got paid to kill them. Generally, the populations were noticeably lower back then. If you look at some of the notes from the 60s and 70s in Lassen County, they rarely saw mountain lions compared to what we're seeing today. From 1963 to 1969, it was a non-protected mammal. And then from 1969 to 1972, it was a game mammal. Starting in 1972, based on public pressure about concerns for their population, the legislature put a moratorium on hunting mountain lions. That moratorium lasted until 1989, when it was not renewed by the governor. And at that time, the public voted on a proposition, Prop 117, which passed in 1990, which made it illegal to hunt mountain lions. It defined mountain lions as a specially protected species, making hunting illegal. The department is prevented from recommending a hunting season for lions. It is illegal to take, injure, possess, transport, import, or sell any mountain lion part in California. Mountain lions may be killed only under 3 conditions. One, if a depredation permit is issued to take a specific lion, killing livestock or pets. 2, to preserve the public safety. Or 3, to protect the listed bighorn sheep. just kind of a background on the laws regarding mountain lions. In response to that proposition, Prop 197 was put before the voters in 1996 to repeal Prop 197 that protected mountain lions. That Prop 197 did not pass in 1996. Some of this stuff we probably don't need to get to. If you guys have specific questions about biology, I have a decent amount of information about their biology that we can get into, but it's probably best to reserve as much time for you guys' questions as possible. For mountain lion management, they are, as I would assume everyone knows, they're primarily active at night, occasionally active during the day. In Lassen County, by far, the most reports we get are in the evening or early morning. When we do get reports of mountain lions seen during the day, we do tend to take that fairly seriously, and we'll oftentimes respond with our federal trapper. His name is George Afonso. He works for the USDA Wildlife Services, and it's basically generally his job to kind of confirm these sightings, usually by looking for tracks or other evidence of a mountain lion. Just because it's so unusual for a mountain lion to be active during the day, we do like to keep a special note of that in case it continues to happen and the situation might escalate. In terms of management of mountain lions, their interactions with mountain lions are categorized into 4 areas. Sightings, someone seeing a mountain lion, getting them on their ring camera, which I think is what is often happening in Spalding. Depredation, when a mountain lion kills a pet or livestock. Potential for human conflict, so an unusual mountain lion sighting, a mountain lion behaving unusually in a way that might suggest to law enforcement that it poses a threat to public safety. And then public safety, which is when law enforcement will review a sighting of a mountain lion and determine whether its behavior warrants or is a threat to the public safety. You know, what it's doing poses a direct threat to public safety. Our depredation policy is fairly complicated, and you probably don't need all the background unless you have concerns about livestock or pets being killed. Our policy changed in 2020. Previously, if a mountain lion killed a pet or livestock, we were able to issue a depredation permit locally and kill that lion, which we did about, on average, 5 times a year in Lassen County. In 2020, our mountain lion depredation policy changed in that it's no longer approved at a local level. So locally, someone reports a sheep, a dog, what have you, killed by a mountain lion to me. It's confirmed by George Afonso, the previously mentioned trapper, and then go ahead.
Okay, so about that depredation permit, I have chickens and rabbits and cats and dogs. How do I acquire one before they kill something?
So that is a common question we get from the public. We are not legally allowed to prevent it.
Okay, what if my dog injures the mountain lion?
Yeah.
Who do I call? What do I do at that point? What if the mountain lion's injured and is still on my property? Do I let it suffer? Do I let my dog rip it apart?
So there's a bunch of things going on there. Like I said, we cannot issue permits to prevent depredation. We can only make recommendations to try and prevent it with some non-lethal measures. You are allowed under the encounter law to kill a mountain lion that's in the act of attacking your pet, your livestock. You are allowed under the encounter law to kill a mountain lion if you perceive it to be a threat to your safety. All of these incidents have to be investigated by the department by law for them to become legal.
So try to get it on my camera if it does have my dog or cat or chicken or rabbit in its mouth, try to move my game camera.
So if you encounter a mountain lion with your pet animal in its mouth, legally you are allowed to shoot it.
Okay.
You have to contact the department by law. We have to come out by law and investigate the scene, and we have to give you a permit after the fact to make that take legal. Okay. Until you get the permit, it's not technically legal until you get the permit.
Will I get fined if that happens then, because it's illegal upon it?
As long as the department determines that what you did was justified,
okay,
you will face no consequences.
Okay.
I cannot answer how law enforcement investigates it. I've never been involved in one where the person wasn't justified.
Okay.
There is wide latitude because obviously mountain lions are very dangerous and occasionally kill people. So we generally give the public pretty wide latitude when they're either in fear of their life, or if your animal is literally in its mouth. This just happened with a bobcat in Beaver on Friday. If you kill the animal as it's killing or attacking your animal, I've never heard of you not getting a permit. The evidence would be very obvious. The animal is gonna have injuries from the mountain lion, or if it's dead, it's gonna be in the mountain lion's stomach. We are required by law to open up the stomach of a mountain lion taking their depredation to try and see if the animal is still in there as evidence that it was committing the depredation, that we got the right lion. A lot of these things are determined by DNA as well, that the right lion was taken.
Okay. And what if my animal, per se my dog, because I have German Shepherds, what if that kills the mountain lion?
Yeah, so.
Will you guys put my dog down or not?
No, because we're not allowed to kill mountain lions as often as we used to be, since our 2020 policy, we have to make non-lethal recommendations to the public to try and prevent lions from causing damage before we kill the lion. One of the things that we recommend is to have guard dogs. So if you have a guard dog on your property, the lion is supposed to be afraid of dogs, right?
Yeah.
Because they're naturally afraid of wolves. That's their natural enemy. So our recommendation to the public is if they have guard dogs, to have them on the property, to keep lions off their property. If the lion ignores the guard dog, attacks the guard dog, you're doing everything you're supposed to do to keep the lion from your property. So it's fine for the lion to defend itself from the lion, just like it's fine for you to defend yourself from the lion on your property. But again, in all these situations, you would need to contact me, or George, or law enforcement, because we do have to come out and do an investigation. Okay.
What stage are we at? Are we ready to relocate them, or are we gonna wait until they kill somebody's animal or attack someone?
We do not relocate mountain lions, generally because relocation doesn't work, and two, because lions are fairly dangerous. It'd be somewhat irresponsible for us to move them to a new situation. Also, pretty much anywhere a mountain lion is gonna live is already gonna have mountain lions. They're very common in our area. In terms of when the department is allowed to act, we have to wait until either the lion is behaving in a way that we think it could attack someone. In that situation, we can kill the mountain lion. That is determined by our law enforcement. I am not law enforcement, so I can't really speak to how they make that call in terms of its behavior, but they generally review the situation and come up with a decision whether or not they think it poses a threat to public safety. It's very rare for them to make that call with mountain lions. It doesn't happen very often. I can't think of it ever happening in Lassen County in the 20 years I've been here. Or it kills someone's animal, then we're allowed to act. That is unfortunately, those are our options. We do not have a lot of latitude with when we kill a mountain lion.
So basically, excuse me, so basically, if our animals disappear, but we don't have proof, we can't do anything about it.
That's a pretty common situation, and what I recommend in that case is to have George Afonso come out, and he will often find your animal for you. That's his job. He's a tracker. That's what he does, and he finds it far more often than he doesn't find the animal. It depends on the type of animal, but for the most part, he's generally able to find your missing livestock or pets.
How many animals have to get killed before you guys are gonna do something? Everybody I know is losing animals.
We got chasing a cat on video just the other
Yeah,
day.
it ate 4 or
I've
9.
lost 8 chickens. I've got neighbors who've lost chickens and cats.
So if you're losing chickens, I would recommend you contact me, because I can't do anything if I don't know about the situation. You have to call me, make a report, we have to investigate. Depends on the situation. Generally with chickens, as long as you have them in some kind of reasonable coop situation.
I have a 6-foot fence. Unfortunately, they can jump 15 feet.
Right, correct. So it depends on the situation. The first step is to call us and let us know what's happening.
Okay,
We
what's your
can,
phone number?
my phone number is 530-340-6808. Now, for chickens, it really depends on the situation. They don't always let us kill the bear or lion that's killing the chickens. It depends on what kind of coop you have, what kind of fencing you have. For outdoor cats, they are not letting us kill mountain lions for killing outdoor cats. They just are not letting us do that. We do not have the ability to kill mountain lions if they're killing your cats outside.
So we're basically feeding the mountain lion to stay here and continue.
They are requiring cats to be either indoors at night or locked up outside at night in some kind of pen.
But we were just talking about guard dogs, and now you're telling
They
me.
treat cats and dogs very differently. Yes, they absolutely do. Because dogs are generally bigger and more likely to fight the mountain lion, and generally have a fighting chance against the mountain lion.
Well, yeah, no,
Because the dogs generally bark at the lions to keep them off your property.
Well, yeah, they-
Dogs are considered very different than outdoor
Plus,
cats.
cats by law are not considered property, so
I can't really talk about
they're not.
specific laws. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a
I
cop.
just got a question real quick. I just wanna verify what you were saying earlier, that mountain lions are common in the mountains.
Mountain lions are extremely common in Lassen County. Mountain lions are found commonly in every single rural area in Lassen County. There are mountain lions in Susanville every year. There are mountain lions in Doyle, Herlong, Milford, Janesville, Westwood. Every town in Lassen County has mountain lions. They're extremely common. I get sightings in all of these towns every year, multiple sightings. They are very common.
I have a question regarding that. Last year, while passing through Susanville, you made a comment that they don't like to be in areas in the daytime. And this was at the daycare just before the Frosty Mill?
Yeah,
And there was a lion in the vacant lot behind the daycare.
yeah.
And I immediately stopped and talked to the gal, and then I called Byron Hernandez. Did they ever do anything with that?
I was not informed of that situation, so I can't speak specifically to it.
How
Like
does not have heard that?
if no one tells me, then I can't know about it. You have to tell me, you have to call me. But, generally speaking, yes, it's very rare to see mountain lions during the daytime, so we take that fairly seriously. By far, the vast majority of sightings are at night, so they're generally not active at daytime. We do I just encountered one yesterday in the daytime, it does happen, but it is pretty rare, and they do take that pretty seriously. They do take a note and a report of it in case it continues to happen. If you're seeing a mountain lion in the daytime for, an extended period of time, that's a pretty serious situation, and I would imagine they would want to know about it. I was not involved in that situation, I have not heard of that particular situation, but mountain lions in that area are very common. I live in that general area. Mountain lions get seen on cameras in that area all the time. People see them crossing the road, driving to work all the time. It's a pretty common mountain lion area for sure. Coming out of the ranch park, they're coming out of the ranch park all the time.
No matter where you live, it's your responsibility to protect your children, your family, your pets, your animals. And the wild animals are gonna do what they need to do, that's what they have to do, they're trying to survive. It's not up to anybody else, protect their own shit. If you can't do it, you shouldn't be here.
But we're not allowed to shoot it when it's attacking.
Well, you are allowed to shoot
They do
it.
it illegally.
Like I said earlier, if it's attacking your animals, you are allowed to shoot it.
Bury it with a backhoe.
What about if we think that there's a mountain lion actively just living in our town here for a while now? I've just recently moved here, but from what I've heard from people, there's been sightings of a mom and two cubs going back a few years. Now think that maybe they're living here, like they're not passing through, they're here, like they're here. Now what about like they do with bad bears in Tahoe, and where they trap them and then let the dogs harass them and chase them away with rubber bullets and make them not want to be around here? If we've got an animal living here, I don't think this thing's passing through. This thing's cruising around. You can talk to everyone here, seen it, all kinds of, this daytime thing you're talking about is nonsense up here. People are seeing this thing all the time. Yeah, this thing's living here in our town.
If people are seeing
I
it,
bet it's in a trailer. I bet it's not even in the woods. I bet it's living in an empty trailer somewhere.
if people are seeing it during the daytime, we really should report it. It's something that we need to know. I'm sure that
There's a whole room full of people here telling me.
well, no one has called me who's seen the mountain lion in the
You don't
daytime.
know what to do.
What?
What, you don't live here, you don't know?
Let him finish his.
I am in the phone book. I am online. If you look up Lassen County Fish and Game, you'll get my phone number. I'm pretty easy to find. You're welcome to call me anytime when you want to report. Sure, okay.
We'd like to hear the rest of your report.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question real quick. So we've been seeing them in front of people's sliders, we've been seeing them on decks, we've been seeing them in fences. Is that self-defense, or what comes to self-defense? Like people going outside getting their wood and then mountain lion, is that self-defense?
So like I said, it's not clearly defined, but there's pretty wide latitude. If you feel like a mountain lion is a threat to your safety and you shoot it, it does get investigated. You have to have some common sense as to what's a threat to you. But generally, I've never heard of them saying that it wasn't a legitimate threat to someone. They do give pretty wide latitude to the public because of the danger that mountain lions can pose to people.
So if he's in your fenced-in yard, is that more justification, considered more justification?
I've never had that situation, so I can't speak specifically to it, but generally when the mountain lion is within a fairly close distance to someone and they shoot it, I've never heard of it not being justified. I'm not law enforcement, I don't do the investigation, so I can't be too specific, but like I said, it's very wide latitude. If you felt like it was a danger to you and you shot it, I just can't imagine that someone's not gonna agree with you most of the
He was
time.
in our fenced-in yard last night, he didn't care.
How close was he to you, generally speaking?
30 feet.
I can't imagine that wouldn't be justified. That's very close.
He didn't care. He
Yeah.
yelled at him, he looked at us like, whatever, dude.
Yeah.
And then he came back and got the shoot. Yanking on our chain.
Like I said, the law does not define a specific distance, but 30 feet is extremely close. That's very close.
Josh, please, keep it down.
So, New Year's morning, large Tom, 6.5 feet long, I met him, he's the same volume, probably, to be honest. He was standing at the base of my 3 steps out my front door when I tried to take my dog out to pee.
Okay.
Okay, I don't have a problem with it. The fact that there's mountain lions, right? They've been here for 15 years and they've been here that whole time. But this one concerned me.
Okay.
He appears to be very habituated to people. He was not afraid of me being there. He was not afraid of us watching him out the window, and he left of his own accord with us talking, he was aware of us being there, he looked at us. Because he was habituated like that, I can't say that he would have come at me, but I would love to have stepped out the door and shot him.
Okay.
Okay, here's the problem in the communities now, and it's all recorded.
Okay.
So I think your officers' investigations may get a little more detailed than maybe they did 10 years ago. Could you expound on that? And then a second question, some of the research I did, there's something new in the last few years with some rezonings because of cats on the coast and something called a 3 strikes investigation. Can you expound on that? Does that affect us?
I can't get into that. I wasn't going to because I didn't think people were interested. To your first question about the investigations of potential threats to public safety, like I said, I'm not law enforcement. Those are investigated by law enforcement. We have 2 wardens in this area, Todd Kennard and Dalton Smith. I can give you their phone numbers at some point after the meeting if you want. They're the ones that come out and do the investigations. Whether their investigations are more detailed than they were 10 years ago, I couldn't answer that question.
Okay, so that's the level of detail that none of us want to get involved in. I mean, if we're gonna have to prove that we're in fear of our life, and what a camera reveals is that a mountain lion never made a lunge at us, there's gonna be some kind of a determination that you guys made, and it sounds like a pretty gray area to me.
Like I said, it's not clearly defined by law. The way it's stated, you have to have a reasonable fear for your life. So if a person agrees with you that it was a reasonable fear, then it's going to be justified. That's all I can tell you.
I think I'll be able to help you out. I retired game warden for 30 years, did your job for 30 years, but law enforcement. I happen to live here. After I tell you what I'm going to tell you, I don't want you to knock on my door. But anyways, it's a pretty simple investigation for the wardens to determine whether you're fearful for your life. You're allowed to protect yourself. If everybody has their own idea of how they felt threatened, whatever that is, when if you do happen to be in a position where you have to kill a mountain lion, you feared for your life, whatever that, you know, justification is, you know, however, I mean, if it was 30 feet, I mean, that's close enough for me. You know, if it's right in front of you, I mean, a mountain lion can leap extremely, you know.
Well, this cat was half the distance between you and I, but
Yeah, I mean,
I was behind a closed door, I didn't have to go outside. So to me, that was, as long as I'm here, I don't need to kill that cat.
yeah, it's, I mean, it's a, you know, your judgment call. I mean, there's a lot of people that want to save everyone. There's people who want to kill all. I was a referee from hell. So, one of the things that, campaign that I worked with and all the other law enforcement agencies was education of people that live in rural areas. And the number one thing is the illegal feeding of deer.
Yeah.
The illegal feeding of deer, and I worked from Los Angeles County, Riverside, San Bernardino. I retired out of Nevada County. I worked in, I think, 25 counties in California, and every one of them had mountain lions in them. And the biggest nexus to lions being in rural areas was the illegal feeding of deer. Number one, that was it. And they've also brought in poachers. So I had to deal with mountain lions, and then I had to deal with the people that were killing them at night because, you know, they're basically being baited in. So that's another aspect of it. The 3 strikes thing, so since I retired, the politics changes on mountain lion and bear depredation issues. Now you got the wolf situation. The director just resigned. I knew him very well. I worked with him. I worked in the Capitol for 10 years. The politics is deep with bears and lions. The 3 strikes situation happened when Gavin Newsom became governor, basically. His dad was one of the founders of the Mountain Lion Foundation. He got very political. Our own wardens, even the director got in some hot water over a mountain lion that they had to kill down in Southern California. I mean, I can get into all kinds of stuff that the wardens have to deal with, and we deal with it face to face because we're the ones that are collecting the evidence. You know, whether it's DNA off of the victim, DNA off the animal, match them. But there was a lot of information to where there wasn't getting a lot of information to the wardens because the wardens were giving solid information because we're the ones that are investigating the actual incident. And the ones that are being grilled by attorneys, you know, and also grilled by our own supervision based on what our policy is. So we know the law pretty deeply, more than anybody else, just because we're the ones that end up making the decision whether they kill that lion also, or issue a deprivation permit. But the bottom line is, you know, if you feel threatened or you feel that any of your livestock or your pets are threatened and that lion is there and you have the means to take that animal, by all means, you know, take it out. If you do that, make sure you got a safe backdrop. Make sure you do kill it and you don't injure it, because I've had to chase injured animals that become dangerous. And then you notify, I think the law still says, I think it's 24 hours after the time that you kill the animal, you have to notify the department within 24 hours. I think bears is 48 hours, but that animal has to be relinquished to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. But I think it's 24 hours with the lion. You just, you know, leave it there, preserve the evidence, you know, cover it up, and notify the, you know, the Sheriff's Department or Fish and Wildlife or the biologist, and then and just be ready for an interview. Just explain your situation. And like you're saying, you know, I've never seen anybody prosecuted for calling the department after they had to kill a lion, ever. And in 30 years,
What's the 3 strikes?
So I can
get explain probably better, because I retired like 5 years ago. It's changed a little bit, but it's made it more difficult for the employees to actually engage in either issuing a deprivation permit or, you know, it's kind of muddied the waters a little bit, but he can explain a little better.
Okay, so in 2017, the department amended its 2013 mountain lion policy to implement separate rules for mountain lions in a portion of Southern California. This was called the stepwise process, the 3-strike process, requiring non-lethal response to the first mountain lion incident. So a mountain lion comes in, kills your whatever animal, we were no longer allowed to kill the mountain lion for that first incident. We were required to recommend non-lethal measures before we could kill a lion. The three-step process refers to having to do that 3 times. In 2020, that policy was increased to the whole state. So that brought us into that policy in 2020. We were able to get our process down to a 2-step process in Northern California, so it only had to kill 2 animals before we were allowed to take care of it. Since 2020, sometime in 2024, this is not a formal policy, but since 2024, they've been letting us kill the lion for the first incident in Northern California, provided you were already doing the non-lethal measures that we would have asked you to. So if you're already doing everything that we want you to do, we will kill the first mountain lion that attacks something.
What are the non-lethal, I mean?
There are a lot of recommendations for non-lethal. Our main recommendations are motion lights, don't feed pets outside, don't feed deer, night pen up your livestock and your pets. So like with the cats, take the cats inside, put the cats in some kind of structure outside, like a closed barn, having guard dogs, harassing the mountain lion with dogs, chasing with an ATV, that kind of thing. Those are the non-lethal recommendations that we're allowed to make to the public.
So you can chase them with dogs?
Yes, if you have a permit. I mean, I would say you probably could do it without the permit, but for us, we're issuing a permit.
If it's a service dog, I can tell my dog to chase it.
Generally with a permit, if you're getting a permit because you have an issue with mountain lions, yes. One of the main things we're recommending to people is that they let their dogs chase the lion, yes.
I'm out of Southern California and just moved up here out of Crestline Lake, Arrowhead Mountain Range. And down there, we've got close to, I'd say 10,000, 20,000 people up on the top of the mountain. We don't have the deer going through the areas up there. They're more wild, they stay out. Right here, they're confined to here, Susanville, where they come on in. They've been fed for years. Not that that's out, so they're coming in here. That is a food source for these mountain lions, and again, we have the same problem with the wolves behind me up there at Eagle Lake Estates. We already know they're up around here, the wolf pack's gonna be coming in. They attacked a horse over there, out there. It's gonna move into this area when the food source is here. When the food source is here, you're not gonna change it. You got deer, hundreds of deer through here. They're standing right here, they're easy. They'll feed right out of your hand, and that's what they're gonna deal with. You have that here, you're gonna have to deal with the mountain lion coming into here. Up there, they're not there. We see them. They're out at, every now and then, but they don't come on in.
Yeah.
They don't come in the area. And I think that game warden probably knows that over there if you've been down there. But that whole area is, huge. A lot of mountain lion, no wolves yet down there, but, we have them down there and they just don't cause any grief. When they do, shoot down a bike trail someplace or somebody riding a bike, you hear about them attacking them. That person on a bike down there in Orange County or someplace down there. Again, it's a food source. That's what it's in.
Yeah, there is a commonality between Susanville, Spalding, Janesville. These communities have a lot of illegal deer feeding in them. There's a lot of deer in these communities. The deer obviously attract mountain lions because that's their primary food source. Yeah, absolutely.
I kind of grew up studying them. I grew up in the mountains. We had a, contrary to popular belief, a den nearby, and they did have a den. And we watched them for over 10 years. 3-4 times a year we'd go up and stay and watch from a distance through binoculars. We got to know the lions. They don't come to town unless they're hungry, and they don't like people. And when you go out and you're in the forest, as much as all the people around here are that are in the forest, you will see that deer populations have declined drastically, and it's because of the overpopulation of the predators and the poachers. I think there's a combination. But is there any help for that at all?
Are you trying to get more deer out there? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, that's the reason we're having less lions is our problem, and wolves and.
Legally speaking, no, we cannot have less lions or less wolves. We're not allowed to, like I said earlier, we're not allowed to recommend a hunt for either of those species, so no, we're not allowed to reduce lion populations or wolf populations.
But other than because your hands have been tied, that you can't even recommend that they decrease them. Put a man back into the circle of life.
We're not allowed to recommend any kind of hunt for those two species, no. So, we're not allowed to limit their numbers. Yes, deer numbers have been declining for a long time in California, there's no question of that. And we've been trying to conserve deer numbers since probably the 70s, when we really started noticing a decline in deer numbers. They've only continued to decline. I don't see that trend changing anytime soon.
Is there any kind of legislation out there right now where people are trying to get that reversed?
The lion law?
Yeah, well, I mean, when they've reached a certain number, because right now you're at 4,500 is what you're reporting California-wise, mountain lions, that's what you're saying. And that's 36 square miles per lion, and that's not, there's a lot of places they don't live.
Right.
So they eat 1 to 3 deer a week. Who's taking care of our deer?
Yeah, like I said, we're not allowed to manage mountain lions for deer, so it doesn't matter how many lions are out there, it doesn't matter how many deer they're killing, there is nothing we can legally do to address mountain lion populations or wolf populations.
So there's not a target number, we're trying to keep the lions this healthy of a population, that we can start.
There is no goal for mountain lions in the state, there is no statewide goal, no.
That's not fair.
Okay, great,
All right.
Okay, so this non-lethal requirement is based on. Hey.
Come on, be courteous.
Alright, so some limitations under depredation, since we got asked about the depredation policy, I'll get into more detail here. We're only allowed to take 1 mountain lion under depredation permit. It doesn't matter if you're seeing 2 or 3 at the site, they will not let us kill more than 1 per permit. It doesn't matter how many lions are present. In order to ensure that the right lion is taken, the permit is only good for 10 days. It only authorizes pursuit of the lion within 1 mile from where the lion killed the animal, and it limits us to pursuing the lion to within a 10-mile radius of that start spot. So we can only start within a mile of where your animal is lost, and we can only go for 10 miles. Doesn't matter if we're still trailing the lion, after 10 miles we have to stop. Excuse me. If damage continues to occur following the killing of a mountain lion under a permit, we may issue an additional depredation permit. So if a lion comes in, kills your chickens, whatever, and we kill that lion and you continue to have problems with lions, we may issue another permit to take additional lions. That's pretty rare, but it has happened a few times in my experience. After the lion is taken, you are required by law to turn it over to the department, because as I mentioned earlier, we are required to necropsy them, which is an autopsy for animals, to confirm if there's evidence of depredation in the stomach contents. We're gonna cut up the stomach contents and see if it killed a goat, is there goat in the stomach, which most of the time, their stomachs are pretty full when they're taken under depredation from whatever they were killed, whatever they had killed most recently. We generally take blood for disease testing. We will note the body condition to try and figure out, are there patterns for depredation? Was it young? Was it old? Was it starving? What did his teeth look like? Did it have sharp enough teeth to kill? Is that why it resorted to killing pets or livestock? Basically, we're just trying to look for patterns in terms of what kind of lions are committing the depredation, and is there a reason why? Are populations overpopulated? Are the animals just not able to get enough food naturally, or are they just old and really struggling to keep up with the wild animals? We already went over non-lethal recommendations. One of the reasons why we wanted to have this meeting, it seems unlikely, but just on the off chance that there are people in the community that don't know that lions are being seen, just want to give people a chance to learn that you guys are seeing lions. Sounds like everyone kind of knows, but in case you didn't know, we want to give you some recommendations in case you haven't already looked it up. you guys already kind of mentioned this, some of the most dangerous things you can do in mountain lion country would be hiking or biking or jogging alone, especially doing these activities at dusk, dawn, or at night when lions are most active. The hiking, the biking, the jogging, when you're moving pretty fast, you're really presenting that kind of prey image to the lion. You're kind of resembling more of a prey animal that's running away from them, and it often stimulates that attack urge, which is why oftentimes when people get attacked by lions, it's when they're hiking or biking or jogging out in their territories. Excuse me. If you do see a mountain lion, you want to keep a close watch on your small children. Seems pretty obvious. Don't approach the lion. Pretty obvious. Face the animal. Make noise. Try to look bigger. The classic thing: waving your arms. Throw rocks at it. Try and hit it with rocks or other objects. Pick up small children. Prevent them from running away or running towards the lion. Obviously, if you're attacked, fight back. Just avoid crouching, bending over. Just to make yourself look as big as possible. Be loud, speak in a loud voice, and there are no known real repellents for mountain lions.
Do you have any stats on the number of attacks that take place against people if they're walking by themselves or if they're with another person?
Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm getting a little disorganized here, so this might take me a second to figure that out.
I can look it up. Okay, I just wondered if you knew off your head.
It's on the
Okay.
I saw it. I can't remember.
Is it less likely with 2 people or 3 people than it is with 1?
Okay, so predicting attacks from 368 known human lion encounters, 29 fatal, 171 non-fatal, and 186 close encounters. You are much more likely, if you're young, to be attacked by a mountain lion 2.5 times more likely. I'm sorry. Young mountain lions under 2.5 years are much more likely to attack or be involved in the close encounters. Female mountain lions are much more likely to attack. Adult mountain lions are much more often fatal than younger lions. 32% of adult attacks are fatal. More likely. 32% of adult attacks are fatal. Only 9% of juvenile attacks are fatal. Victims who use a weapon killed the lion 82% of the time. Yelling, backing away, throwing objects, looking bigger, substantially lowered your odds of being attacked in the first place. That's assuming you know the lion's there. They are ambush predators. You often don't know they're there. But if you do know they're there, definitely do those things: yelling, backing away, throwing objects, looking bigger. People who are moving rapidly or erratically, like jogging or biking or hiking fast, running, skiing, snowshoeing, biking, ATVing, 25% of those attacks were fatal. And we're certainly far more likely to be attacked and killed than less active people. Only 8% of people walking or less active were fatally attacked by mountain lions. Children under 10 years of age are much more likely to be attacked than single adults. Intervention by people of any age reduced the odds of a child dying by 4.5 times. I don't know if that answered all of your questions, but that's what I've been able to glean from the research. In terms of attacks, I think we can all agree that attacks have become far more common since about 1986. There were very few attacks between 1890 and 1986, but since 1986 there have been a number of attacks. Excuse me. We seem to be getting into the question and answer stage, so I think I can start answering questions, and you guys can, if I don't address all of your questions or if I don't adequately answer them, we can get to you guys asking questions directly. I think you asked a number of questions, but there's probably more questions to answer. Some of the most common questions we get: does CDFW relocate mountain lions to Lassen County? No, we are not bringing mountain lions to Lassen County. I know a lot of people do not believe us. I am not aware of a single mountain lion being brought to Lassen County. Certainly not in my time here or the time before me. If a mountain lion is observed outside of its habitat, This has happened a few times in downtown Sacramento or San Jose or San Francisco. It's in the middle of town. Our policy does allow them to be returned to the closest mountain lion habitat. I would say the department views pretty much all of Lassen County to some extent as mountain lion habitat because of how rural our communities really are. Excuse me. Not to mention all the deer that are in town attracting these animals. We kind of got into this already as well. How many mountain lions are in California? It's very difficult to count mountain lions, obviously, since they are most often active at night. We have received 2 unofficial estimates between 3,200 and 4,500 for the state. As far as I know, and I checked last about a couple months ago when I was finishing this presentation, I didn't see anything on our website officially listing the number, but there have been some articles in the LA Times and other newspapers where officials with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife came up with these estimates. So it's not official, but we believe there are somewhere between 3,200 and 4,500 mountain lions in California. But again, I have not been able to find that published on our website recently. We already kind of got into this as well. Can I defend myself or my livestock? Yes, if you feel threatened or someone is attacked, if your livestock is attacked, you may kill the lion. You must report the incident to the department. All such incidents are investigated by our law enforcement, and if the investigation determines the take was justified, you will be issued a retroactive depredation, what we call an after-the-fact permit. The law specifically states that any mountain lion, this is called the encounter law, any mountain lion that is encountered while in the act of pursuing, inflicting injury to, or killing livestock or domestic animals may be taken immediately by the owner of the property or the owner's employee or agent. The taking shall be reported to within 72 hours to the department. An individual is not guilty of a violation if it is demonstrated that in taking or injuring a mountain lion, the individual is acting in self-defense or defense of others. Again, like we already talked about, pretty vague. It doesn't define a distance. It doesn't define what is a threat to you. It just relies on common sense. I know that's kind of hard to swallow with the government, but that is what it kind of relies on. How often are mountain lions declared public safety threats in California? The CDFW receives hundreds of reported mountain lion sightings annually across the state, but fewer than 3% turn out to be verified public safety threats. During 2004, for example, there were 14 mountain lions killed statewide under the public safety law. Public safety lion definition: a mountain lion demonstrating aggressive action that has resulted in physical contact with a human or exhibiting an immediate threat to public health and safety given the totality of the circumstances. Immediate threat refers to one or more aggressive behaviors directed toward a person not reasonably believed to be due to the presence of the responders, the law enforcement. Excuse me. If I live in mountain lion habitat, how concerned should I be for my safety? There have been 4 fatalities since 1986, 2 in the last 20 years in California, but there have been 26 attacks in that time, and 17 in the last 20 years. So the number of attacks seem to be getting more frequently as people encounter lions more often. Excuse me. While mountain lion attacks are rare, they have been increasing, and risk is unique to each person's circumstances. Where are you? What are you doing? Obviously, when we live in these kind of communities, we are probably much more likely to encounter a mountain lion than, say, someone living in the middle of Los Angeles or San Francisco. So the risk for all 40 million people in California is not the same. It's obviously much more risky for us here where we're seeing mountain lions much more commonly. Excuse me. Sorry, that was a little loud. People who live in mountain lion habitat can take precautions to reduce their risk. Deer proofing the landscape, like we talked about earlier, not feeding the deer. It is very difficult, as someone already mentioned, to lion proof your lion proof your property because they can jump very high. It is much easier to deer proof your property. It's ugly to have a 6 foot, or not 6 foot, it's ugly to have a 10-foot fence that's gonna keep the vast majority of deer out of your property. if the deer are not in your yard, it's much more unlikely for the lion to want to be in your yard. Again, that's expensive and difficult to do, but it is possible to deer-proof your property. It is not really, as we already talked about, possible to lion-proof your property. Excuse me. It's also recommended to remove dense vegetation from around the home and installing outdoor lighting, so it's much more difficult for lions to approach your yard unseen. They are stalk ambush predators, so they prefer not to be seen, despite the fact that they're being seen very commonly in Spalding because of all the cameras and whatnot in the area. If you can kind of trim your vegetation down so it's harder for them to approach your yard unseen, that will also generally reduce the lion's desire to be in your yard. The department defines a mountain lion attack as an incident resulting in direct physical contact between a human and a mountain lion, resulting in physical injury or death to the person. The department considers an attack to be verified only when a physician, law enforcement officer, or other fish and game personnel determine the injuries were caused by a mountain lion. Based on extensive reviews of verified lion encounters, suggest making loud noises, screaming, yelling, gunshots, can work to provoke the lion to leave the area. Charging the lion can work, but also might result in the person being injured, so that's why we don't recommend approaching the mountain lion. We already talked about throwing rocks, hitting them with sticks, waving your arms. Group size of 5 people seem to be relatively safe from attacks, but children, even in groups of 5 people, have been attacked. People on the ground while sleeping usually receive only minor injuries from lion attacks, probably because the humans wake up during the attack and startle the lion. But like we already talked about, children are very common victims and are usually not alone, usually with adults. Adult victims are often alone. Adults are much more likely to be attacked when they're by themselves. Researchers approaching lions 262 times with 1 to 8 people from 3 to 335 meters. Lions exhibited threatening behavior, growling, hissing, charging 16 times. 14 of those times were females with kittens, so it does seem like females with kittens are much more likely to be aggressive. Are mountain lion attacks on pets, livestock common? I'm sorry, did I miss a question? It has become increasingly common for mountain lions to prey on pets and livestock as more people move into mountain lion habitat. The department received hundreds of reports annually of mountain lions killing pets and livestock. In 2020, when the new policy went into effect, which reduced the number of lethal permits we issued because of the 3-step and 2-step process, we still issued 100 lethal permits statewide and almost 200 non-lethal permits, which would recommend you the ability to harass the lion or chase it with your dogs. And of the 100 lethal permits, 48 animals were killed. In 2019, the year before this policy went into effect statewide, but was in effect in Southern California, we issued 200 lethal permits and 73 of those animals were killed. We range between 100 and 300 issued permits annually, and we range between 50 and 120 mountain lions killed annually under depredation. And we already talked about how to prevent mountain lion damage, enclosures. Sturdy enclosure with a roof, they often will not issue a permit if you don't have a roof on your enclosure because a lion can still jump in, and they're great climbers. We recommend guard animals, like we talked about, motion lights and motion sounds. And that we already talked about this, but we are not allowed legally to prevent loss. So we are not legally allowed to kick mountain lions before they kill your pets. We just are not allowed to legally.
I have a question. In Colorado recently, a woman, a hiker, she was killed by a mountain lion, and they went in the area and killed every mountain lion in the area. Is that something that would happen here if, God forbid, someone got attacked and killed? Would they come in and regulate? Or?
Again, this Colorado is a different state, different laws. Legally speaking, we are only allowed to kill the mountain lion that attacks the person that killed the person. That is always confirmed with DNA taken from the victim and from the mountain lion. No, we would not be legally allowed to kill any other mountain lions than the one that was directly responsible.
You said relocating is not an option. You guys can't just take.
We do not relocate mountain lions. No.
In the current state politics going on it doesn't look like there's gonna be any changes. Can the Fish and Wildlife, since they can't, go after them, can they educate the general public better? So that the general public, maybe when they had a situation like this, the legislation could allow you to do your job?
I'm not quite sure how to answer that question. So because the mountain lion laws are all based on a proposition that was voted by approved by the voters, direct democracy, it does limit how the law can be changed. It requires a pretty significant majority of the legislature to even modify the mountain lion laws. So the reason that we adjusted our policy for mountain lions is because the legislature adjusted, I don't know if I have this specifically here written down, and hold on one
Because
second.
my understanding of this is basically your hands are tied, you can't do that job here. That's what I'm hearing.
Our options for mountain lions are very limited, yes.
Right, thank you.
Like I said already, there's only really 3 situations where we're allowed to kill mountain lions, and no other situations.
Do we have any sort of educational campaign that you guys are out there trying to do?
We are not allowed to urge the public to change laws. We are simply not allowed to advocate for changes to the law.
But you can educate all these, the examples that you've been giving about attacks and things that are happening because of the increased population. You can't do that?
Well, we are allowed to, like we're having this meeting here, we are allowed to engage with the public, answer their questions, and get out as much education as we can. We don't do it very often. We just don't have the time to do it very often. But this is our best chance to do what people are asking for. In terms of changing the mountain lion law, it would have to be a proposition that is recommended by the voters and approved by the voters, or the legislature would have to have a significant majority vote to change portions of the law. Like I said, the legislature did change the mountain lion law to require this non-lethal requirement. And that was from the legislature, but it required, I believe, a 4/5 vote of the legislature. So it takes pretty much a supermajority of the legislature to adjust these propositions, the laws based on propositions.
Okay, thank you.
If one wanted to get a permit, where would they go?
For depredation?
And don't you get a permit to, if you have, defamation?
So if you lose an animal, if you have a pet killed outside of, like we already talked about, it's very hard for us to do anything for outdoor cats. But if you lose a dog, if you lose a goat, a sheep, whatever, you would contact me, either me directly, or you would contact George Afonso, who works for the USDA Wildlife Services, and one of us will respond. George is generally the person that's going to come out, investigate what you report, either confirm it or not confirm it, and then we would apply for a permit from Redding based on what George finds, and either they'll approve it in Redding or they won't. If they approve it in Redding, then I will issue you a permit to kill that lion. And most people, like 100% of people in Lassen County, that lion would be killed by George because he has expertise killing and tracking lions.
Is there a fee for the permit?
There is no fee for the permit in the state of California. There is no fee in Lassen County for Georgia services. That is not true in every county. If you live in other counties, the rules by county are different. In some counties, the federal trappers do charge people a fee. They do not charge a fee in Lassen County. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife does not charge a fee for depredation permits. The federal government, who is responsible for issuing depredation permits for birds, they do charge a fee. So it is slightly different. If you're having a problem with any kind of a bird, a raven, an eagle, a hawk, owl, woodpecker, whatever, you have to apply for a permit from the feds, and there is a fee for that permit. And they charge you that fee whether they approve the permit or not.
How long is the permit good for?
Depends on the species. For mountain lions, like I said, it's a 10-day permit.
10 days.
So if you don't get that permit, if you don't get that lion within the 10 days, we may extend the permit, issue another one, or we may not. For bears, it can be anywhere from a couple weeks to a couple months. For beavers, it can be by law for a year. I don't have all the statistics in front of me for bobcats and other species, but
I'm just curious about it.
yeah, it does change by species.
Now, I know we all like the deer. If so happened the deer, declined in the area, would the cats have a tendency to move on?
I think if there was less deer here, you'd see lions a lot less frequently, yeah. I can't guarantee that, but everywhere we have the most common mountain lion sightings, we have tons of deer.
And they don't issue no tags for the deer in around here?
We do not issue depredation permits for deer, no. It's generally pretty unpopular because there's so few deer for the hunters to kill out in the wild. It's generally perceived as kind of a bad idea to kill deer for depredation.
So how do you go about finding people that are baiting them and feeding them?
So that's law enforcement. Generally, we're getting reports from the public. It is very difficult because even though it's illegal to feed deer, it's not exactly a crime on the scale of murder.
Sure.
So it's hard to prosecute that kind of crime. We have had discussions.
If I drive by somebody's house and there's 18 deer on their porch eating, I can pretty much assume that they're probably being fed.
Right, so if you suspect someone is feeding deer illegally, the avenue is to report it to the game warden. The game warden will investigate and will determine what to do. I will say 99% of the time, they're going to issue the person a warning and hope it stops. That may or may not happen. It is very difficult, even though it's illegal, it is very difficult to prosecute these crimes. We have worked a little bit with this, I see you back there. We have worked with the city of Susanville to try and create an alternate schedule, like some kind of fine or some kind of code violation in the city limits, but that hasn't gone anywhere, so it's still very hard for us to prosecute the illegal feeding of deer. So that's why it tends to keep going on, for decades. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a certain dog. I take her outside with me a majority of the time. I have a blind little girl. I lost 3 rabbits last year. I do believe it was from a mountain lion. They were completely ripped out of the cages. I have seen their footprints on my property everywhere. Say if I say a command word to my service dog, is that okay? With the does she have to have a deprivation permit? Like, how does that work with getting a dog deprivation permit? When my dog, if I tell her to go eat nuts, she's gonna go attack that dog.
I'm telling you, you don't wanna send your dog. I've seen it in my yard. It's like 250 pounds, 300 pounds. I have 2 dogs.
I got 2 too.
They wouldn't stand a chance.
Hey guys, let's be respectful to him, alright?
Did you guys have any more questions? Generally speaking, for when you have a dog and it's harassing wildlife, it's generally your responsibility to control your dog. But obviously, if you feel a threat from a mountain lion and your dog attacks the mountain lion, I don't see how it would be any different than if you shot the mountain lion because you felt threatened by it. And
I'd say if you love your dog, don't.
On that note, do you have any statistics for any dog who's ever done anything to a mountain lion?
So
I haven't seen nothing but dogs getting killed by them. I haven't seen anybody's dog taking down a mountain lion.
Right, so it is pretty common in Lassen County for dogs that encounter mountain lions to be injured or killed by the mountain lion, and it's pretty common for the owner of that dog to kill the mountain lion to protect its dog. I have not heard of dog.
There's nobody's guard dog coming over the mountain lion this night.
Right, right.
Something happened.
What can we do as a community? I know you already said you listed a couple of things, but like, should everybody leave their lights on at night? Or if we see it in our yard, should we go up and yell at it, make sure it's not welcome? I mean, I would air horn. What should we all
Shoot at it with
do
rubber bullets?
to get it out of here?
I cannot authorize you to shoot at it with rubber bullets as far as I know. There's a pretty big danger to the mountain lion. I mean, I guess it's better than shooting it with regular bullets, but there's a pretty strong chance of injuring the lion and wounding it, critically with a rubber bullet if you're pretty close to it. So generally do not allow the public to shoot wild animals with the rubber bullets.
That's not under the hazing? I thought it was.
It can be under the hazing, but generally it is not. We generally don't include that under the hazing. but it can be. But generally, we prefer professionals to harass animals with rubber bullets.
Makes sense.
If everybody left their lights on, would that kind of deter them from the neighborhood? Or?
I mean, motion activated lights is one of the big things that we recommend. It's not foolproof. If there are deer in your yard and there's lights on in your yard, the deer is probably still gonna attract the lion to your yard. But we do, lights is certainly something that we recommend more for your safety, so that if the lion is in your yard and your light comes on, you see that the lion is in your yard. It doesn't necessarily keep the lion out of your yard, it just lets you know you can see the lion better with the lights on. That's generally why we recommend motion activated lights. There's very little you can do to keep a lion out of your yard, especially if there's a lot of deer in the yard, in the community.
Two things. One, can you post your business information in the lobby or with the district before you?
I can leave some cards for sure, yeah.
The second thing is in respects to some of the shootings regarding lions or some of the things that were commented here, is special interest groups. Is there any civil actions that are going on against people, other citizens, that try to protect themselves successfully or not, and then putting those people through litigation?
I haven't necessarily heard of any lawsuits, but in other parts, doesn't really apply to us in Lassen County, but in other parts of California, I have heard of people having difficulty taking mountain lions under their depredation permits. I've heard of people having issues with their neighbors trying to take a mountain lion under a depredation.
And no organized groups?
I don't, not that I'm aware of, but I don't live in Southern California. I don't live in other parts of California. My view is pretty much limited to Lassen County. I don't tend to have the latest and greatest information from other places, but it's certainly possible. And obviously, if you are familiar with Lake Tahoe, you know that there's a pretty concerted effort in Lake Tahoe to prevent the department from killing problem bears. And I would not be surprised if that was the case for mountain lions in other parts of California, but I'm not aware of it specifically.
Thank you.
When you speak of law enforcement, you're talking about state law, wildlife.
So it's a bit of a gray area in terms of how law enforcement responds to mountain lions. Typically, our department is in charge of determining whether a mountain lion is a threat to public safety, but there is wide latitude for us to work with other law enforcement, pretty much any law enforcement, if they encounter a mountain lion and say, we can't get there, and they're on scene and we're not on scene, and they talk to us. It's pretty common for us to consult with local law enforcement, and our law enforcement will say, yes, we believe what you're describing is a threat to public safety.
So most of the time when you're talking about notifying law enforcement, you're talking about Department of Fish and Wildlife.
We are typically talking about the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Obviously, we only have 2 wardens for a pretty large county. There are way more city PD, there are way more Lassen sheriffs out there, so oftentimes they're gonna be to the scene probably before we can be to the scene. So we almost always are gonna have to work with other law enforcement in those situations. Yeah, oh, sorry, I almost forgot.
So, looking into the future, in your position, a lot of this is when we were allowed political, we can't do this because of that or this, or these kind of things. A lot of these things get voted by the mass of people that live in the city in California isn't gonna have anything to do with us. Would it help if the Fish and Game were a county, would it be easier for you guys if we could vote in counties what's happening with Fish and Game and wildlife, rather than have 1 million people in LA that obviously everybody wants to protect animals, but if you've never seen one, you're not dealing with it. We're never gonna be able to vote in anything where, like you just mentioned earlier, you guys aren't even, there is no number where the population is gonna get to where they can say it's time to start. What if there's 1 million of these things? I mean, legally speaking, does a county get to start protecting itself because they're not down in the county that's outvoting them?
Legally speaking, like I said earlier, there is no number. If there's 1 million mountain lions in California, I don't imagine that would ever happen, but say that happened, legally speaking, it would not trigger anything with the department being able to do anything. In terms of addressing voting by county, I am not super familiar with civics. I did not study civics in school. I don't know if that's possible. I'm guessing
I'm not saying it's possible, but
yeah.
Obviously you don't want someone down in LA making your policy for up here.
That is kind of the rub to people that live in rural communities like this, is that they are way outnumbered by more urban communities, and, you know, I think a lot of people feel like their vote doesn't matter, but unfortunately, that's just the way our government is structured. Everyone gets a vote on these propositions, it doesn't matter where you live.
That goes back, his question went back to my education thing by the Fish and Wildlife. Because your hands are so tight on so many things, can we not educate through our schools and through our communities, through the Fish and Wildlife programs, because you're funded for that. Come into our schools, teach the kids about how the circle of life works.
I'm sure I have been to schools very rarely, because I
Well,
hate
you're
public.
Madison County, but that's not where our voting problem is. We need to
Right.
have our Fish and Wildlife educating everybody.
I have no idea. It's pretty rare for us to go to schools because we're fairly busy, but when we're asked, we generally go to schools and talk about what we're asked to talk about. I don't know how often in other counties people are asking us to go to the school and talk about lions. We can certainly go to schools and talk about whatever lions, bears, wolves, whatever we want to. We're allowed to go and discuss what we do for our job and the conditions that are applied. I don't know how often it happens. It probably doesn't happen very often, but yes, we can certainly go to schools and educate children about.
But you as a biologist in this area, that's your job, right? You're a biologist?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
So. Can you write letters to your headquarters saying, you know, something about this, like, there's a lot more out here that we could teach our people?
I mean, we've had a lot of discussions over the last 40 years, no, 30 years, 35 years since it became illegal to manage mountain lions in the way that people want us to. And I certainly, in the 20 years I've been here, I've had a lot of conversations. The needle has never moved in the time I've been here. We've had lots of conversations about mountain lion issues. You know, we had, when this policy came into place in 2020, we had tons of internal conversations about how hard this policy was going to be for us locally, where we have lots of mountain lion conflict. And no, I mean, it hasn't changed anything. No.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Trying to reel this back into relevance to what we got going on right now. Based on the feedback you've heard today, is that enough to initiate an investigation on our current problem?
So law enforcement is aware, excuse me,
At least get an accurate number out here or something?
and I have talked to the game warden. I don't know that there's really much for him to do in terms of all the sightings. It's a lot of sightings, but you know, if you are witnessing behavior that you think is as a threat, all I can really tell you to do is contact law enforcement and plead your case and see if they'll come out and talk to you and do an investigation. I don't handle that, so I cannot make any promises. That's all I can really do. All I handle is depredation. Like I said, they're killing cats. They won't let me kill a mountain lion for killing outdoor cats generally until it kills something like a dog or something that's in a pen. You know, they really limit what we can do. Unfortunately, we just have very limited options on how we address depredation since 2020.
Ryan, could you read the number of the Department of Fish and Wildlife?
I can give you guys the wardens for sure. Absolutely.
Number or
Yeah.
something, so that we have.
I gotta go run to my truck and get my phone.
We have it in the office as
Okay.
well as with the fire
Yeah, I
department.
think we need
We
to
have
post
both.
that so people
Not a problem.
can go ahead and make these calls that need to be made, you know, they can get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a pretty common, it's a pretty common complaint with the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We're not like a big agency. People don't often know who we are unless you learn to fish. You may never have heard of us. And so it's pretty common when I talk to the public, they don't know to contact us about mountain lions. So it's very often people are upset that no one is doing anything or responding. Not that, you know, we can usually do what they want us to do. We can't usually kill a lion anyway, but you know, it's pretty common for people to say, you know, no one is listening. You know, we don't know who to talk to. That's why we have these meetings, so that you guys know who I am, know who the warden's numbers are, so you can start making the call. That is the first step. I cannot guarantee that you're gonna like the answer you get from us, a lot of the time the answer I give people is not very popular, but at least making us know what the situation is so we can't say we don't know what's going on, that is the first step. Once we can demonstrate the situation might justify taking the mountain lion, we can at least make that recommendation to our superiors in Reading and say, hey, we're getting a lot of sightings, we're getting sightings during the day, you know, they're killing a lot of cats, like, is there anything we can do? Because that is something that we have to make a note of in our reports. Are the neighbors experiencing issues? How many people, like, how many issues are being experienced in this area? How many people are losing cats? That kind of thing. Like I said, no promises. We are very restricted on when we kill mountain lions, but at least be able to demonstrate to our superiors that there's a serious amount of sightings, that there's a serious amount of cats being lost is the first step for us to do anything.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I gotta go to my truck and I gotta get my car. I will be right back.
Don't forget, we have a community meeting tomorrow at 1 o'clock here as well. Ah.